Greetings, travelers. What does it mean to be a ninja? As a young Sun Tzu once said, I am not Japanese. If watching Naruto taught me anything, it's that the real way to be a ninja is to have nakama, and the other 99% is talking to people to convert them into nakama, none of which is here to help you in Final Fantasy XIV. There are two things to understand at the fundamental level. Doton is not good versus a single enemy in any circumstance in this patch in particular, so if I catch you doing it, I won't say anything. And this is a job that is like listening to Knife Party. It's got a lot of build-up until you finally get to the drop.
This is a knife.
And then you go back to chilling out until the next drop. This gameplay loop can be pretty jarring as it alternates between 15 seconds of raw, unadulterated damage and 45 seconds of zoning out completely as the rush wears off, only for you to do it all over again. You either like it or you don't. It's nice to be aware of these things. Alright, it's time for your Mudra crash course. I'd recommend reading the tooltips, but I already know what you really want from me is to condescendingly explain everything to you in this video. So sit back and enjoy, you sicko. Once you begin making Naruto symbols, you are committed to completing your incantation. Pressing anything that isn't a mudra will cause a rabbit to appear on your head, which doesn't do anything other than look cute. Pressing two of the same mudra button also does this. Much like life itself though, it's all about the destination and not about the journey. So in other words, all that matters is the last mudra that you press before you click ninjutsu. I will give you my own preference for ninjutsu combinations, but I will include the alternative way on the side. Now, to get your DPS buff up before combat, you want to use Huton by using either Jin-Chi 10 or Chi-Jin 10. In order to use Trick Attack in combat, you will want to use Suichan Kyomo Kawaii by inputting TenChiJin, not that one, or Chi-Tenjin. If you want a standard big-hitting single-target bomb, you cast Raiton by using Tenchi or Jinchi. And your biggest super move is called Hyosho Ryanryu, which you can only use if you're a level 76 or higher and you use Kassatsu before the ninjutsu and input either Chi-Jin or Tenjin. Oh, did your Hyosho Ryanryu direct hit and crit? That's quite a big number you landed, you big boy. Oops, I mean girl. Girl. You have now mastered everything necessary for subpar single-target rotations. Behold an opener. Bear in mind the ultimate truth of ninja. While I will give you a specific order for how to press all the buttons, this is to help you get some generic muscle memory down. In reality, as long as you are landing all of your big, rock-hard moves in your own buffs and party buffs, the order does not matter that much. Also, mastering everything that you want to attempt to fit in burst windows is quite literally the most important thing to playing this job mediocrely. Cool. Huton before combat, probably like 10 seconds before you want to pull. Reset your mudra charges with hide before combat as well. Begin channeling Suiton about 5 seconds before the pull. Ideally you want to land it right as the battle starts, which would actually be about 0.362 seconds before combat if you are trying to be a perfect nerd. Think of it like trying to press the accelerator as the 2 fades in Mario Kart, except it's when the 1 fades and it's Final Fantasy XIV. Immediately weave Kassatsu. Press spinning edge, and this is when you can take some blue sky. Press gust slash and double weave mug and bunshin. Use phantom Kamaitachi and try to late weave trick attack right before you press Aeolian edge. Make sure that you hit both of your rear positionals, and then weave dream within a dream. Now use the mudra combination I taught you to use Hyosho Ryanryu, and then use Raiton immediately after with another mudra combination I taught you. Now we press the level 70 button called TenChiJin. Make sure that you stand completely still as you then press Ten, Chi, and Jin all in a row. And don't question what just happened. After pressing Jin, which will actually cast Suiton, weave Misui and press a fleeting Raiju. Weave Bavakakra and press another fleeting Raiju and weave another Bavakakra. And then follow up with another Raiton, which should be the very last thing that you land inside of your mug debuff burst window. And then use another Raiju. With all that nonsense out of the way, we are now in filler. The ninja opener is a whole load of shit, but if you practice it and get it down, it is basically the entire job. I am not kidding. You can almost figure everything out from here by yourself right after I say that you want to use Suiton when Trick Attack has less than 20 seconds on cooldown and before you get a second Mudra charge. The rest of this video is just bonus and moderately helpful. Although I will excessively elaborate on everything to extend this video length to high levels and encourage you to give me more YouTube metrics. Or you can stick around just because you want some extra nerdy details. Now for your 3-button filler combo, you have 2 different choices for your 3rd button. One for damage, which is a rear positional, and one to add 30 seconds to Huton, which is a flank. You want to know about hitting positionals? There's a nice segment in some video that some guy also made on YouTube. You generally want to refresh Huton when you have less than 30 seconds remaining, although you can be greedier with it if you like playing with fire and being disappointed at your incompetence. With all this talk about Huton, getting Mudra charges back with Hide in your opener, and refreshing Huton with Armor Crush, you might think to yourself, wait, what is Huraijin used for? A great question, you highly inquisitive individual. There are a few use cases. You died and you need to get Huton back up in combat without wasting a Mudra charge. This is also applicable if you timed out the buff like an idiot, or if downtime was actually just that long. Or if your party is mean and doesn't give you a few seconds to set up before combat, so you simply cuss them out, but not in chat, and use that as the first GCD in combat and go from there. It is mostly a recovery tool to make the job less punishing than it has been in the past. As far as some other things I didn't properly explain up front, we use Kassatsu pretty early in the opener to put it on cooldown as soon as possible. This is what makes your next Mudra charge do more damage and doesn't consume a Mudra stack. It also turns Hyotan into Hyosho Ryanryu after level 76. If you accidentally use Kassatsu slightly late, it is not the biggest deal, as long as you use it before Trick Attack. If you are not level 76 yet, you want to use Kassatsu on Raiton and fuck up your muscle memory. Bunshin costs 50 meter, and will make your next 5 random subset of GCDs do bonus damage and give you some meter back. Bunshin will also turn into Phantom Kamaitachi after pressing it, which is a whole different GCD. This skill is ranged and doesn't consume Bunshin stacks. It also will extend Huton by 10 seconds. You can hold on to your Shadow Clone for a whole 45 seconds without losing it. Bunshin itself is on a 90-second timer, and you do want to use it on cooldown, so make sure you don't dump too much meter into Baba Kakra as it's about to come back up, and then wonder why there is a single button on this job that doesn't fit into the whole minute burst framework. Phantom Kamaitachi is great for ranged filler if you need to leave melee range for a mechanic, although it is optimal to use it in Trick Attack or Mug burst windows if you didn't need to use it for a ranged attack. The other thing I refuse to fully acknowledge is TenChiJin, not those ones. This button after pressing it will make your next 3 Mudra skills execute the ninjutsu GCD as if you had performed the combo. That doesn't make any sense after you hear me say it. Instead, the proper way to use TenChiJin is to press it and then press TenChiJin. Don't worry about it. The only downside is that even thinking of moving your character will make its effect wear off and call you stupid. It is encounter specific when you might want to hold on to TenChiJin for a split second if you're going to need to move in that exact moment. I am predicting that this will get changed in a later patch, and if I lose that bet, I'm going to drink some water. On the plus side, all of your attacks in TenChiJin are fully ranged. We're not going to talk about Doton, and since we don't need the Suiton buff that we get, that is why we eat it with Mi Sweet to get meter and also buff the next Baba Kakra that we use, because that's a trait that you probably didn't even realize existed. This also leads to the strange and weird world of post-TenChiJin pre-Mi Sweet ninja gameplay that I'm not going to elaborate on. I will mention that it is slightly different than playing ninja at any other level range though. Lastly, every time you use Raiton at level 90, you now have a combo action. They finally gave us Chidori. You better give us a Rasengan next expansion, and after that, we better get a Madarasu. Yoshi P, I know that you watch my videos. After Raiton, you have the choice of using either Forked or Fleeting Raiju. Fleeting Raiju is just a damaged GCD, and Forked Raiju is a gap closer GCD that comes with a short animation lock. These GCDs have the exact same potency and exact same damage dealing properties. Generally, you will use Fleeting Raiju, but Forked Raiju does look cooler. If you press any regular combo action at all, you will lose the Chidori stack and lose a Raiju. Although using other ninjutsu skills does not break the combo. You can even gain multiple charges of Raiju at a time. Hence why we use Raiton and TenChiJin back to back in the opener without losing a Raiju cast. Now, why would you want a gap closer after a Raiton cast? Ideally, you will be using all of your ninjutsu skills in trick attack, but sometimes you have to leave melee range and you want to use a ranged attack. As a ninja, you have a few different options for ranged filler. I briefly mentioned Phantom Kamaitachi earlier, but any ninjutsu skill also works. You can plan to hold a Raiton for a ranged attack and immediately get back into melee range by following up with Forked Raiju.
Also, in a perfect world, if you need to use Suiton before your next trick attack, that's actually the best range filler skill to use on Ninja. Haha.
And Throwing Dagger is your last resort for ranged filler if you didn't save a cooldown that you would have preferably used instead. Just bear in mind that melee downtime is something that you learn as you get better at specific encounters. Once you reach level 90, get yourself in the habit of using Fleeting Raiju because your muscle memory needs to be corrected and then immediately broken whenever you get synced down. With everything over-explained, let's talk about your burst windows. After the opener, you're going to go straight into filler. Trick attack will eventually have less than 20 seconds remaining on its cooldown, and that is your cue that you need to use a Suiton before you reach 2 stacks of Mudra charges. This sounds overly complicated and hard to execute, but there is a very generous window for where you can safely use Suiton and not mess up any of your ability alignments. After Suiton, you keep using filler and make sure to weave Kassatsu when it's back up. Then use Trick Attack as soon as it's off cooldown. This is when Ninja can get pretty freeform. You want to land as much burst as you can in your Trick Attack window. You will generally land a filler GCD at first and weave Dream Within a Dream, get Hyosho Ryanryu in there, 2 Raitons, 2 Raijus, and some amount of Bavakakras. And always make sure to keep that GCD spinning. Trick attack will fall off and you go back to filler. Don't forget to use Bunshin on cooldown. You typically want your 2-minute burst window to be very similar to your opener. The only thing that's going to throw you off is that you need to make sure that you don't overcap on meter when you go to press Mug for your sweet 2-minute raid buff aligned window. And the reason why I'm not explaining every GCD for every trick attack is that it does technically change enough to be considered different for like a 6-minute life cycle. I think you can put it together that you want to use Mug, Trick Attack, TenChiJin, and Misui in your 2-minute burst windows, along with everything that I mentioned on odd-minute burst windows. Before I talk about Ninja's utility options, AoE is a thing. You still need to get Huton up with either Mudra charges or Huraijin. Your filler GCDs consist of both Death Blossom and Hake Minjisatsu. For AoE Mudra, you want to use Katan instead of Raiton, which I use Chi 10 for. You will typically want to set up a Doton where your tank is going to pull all the mobs, and then watch as they get scared thinking that Doton is not a friendly AoE. You can also set up a Doton with TenChiJin by standing still where you want the Doton to be and press Jin Tenchi while TenChiJin is active. This isn't something that's necessary. Doton is a big gain on at least 2 targets over Katan as long as it sticks around for even half of its duration. Bunshin will also work for your AoE filler GCDs, and Phantom Kamaitachi is also an AoE skill. If you use Kassatsu, it will turn Katan into Goka Mekyaku, which is your big boy AoE move to deal massive damage. I do want to emphasize that you want to set up Doton no matter how you accomplish that, especially after level 86 where various actions will make the Doton do bonus damage. Make sure to dump all Mudra charges in each trash pull since you can use Hide to get your charges back in between trash pickup. There really isn't too much else to mention except for the fact that you have Hellfrog Medium to spend Ninki on over Bavakakra if you're fighting at least 3 enemies. Back in the day it was a gain on 2. Finally, we can explain some other ninja specific utility. You have a fancy shiny new gap closer that you got this expansion, but you also have the ground targeted gap closer in the form of Shikuchi. You get 2 charges of it and also gain a charge after using any 2-button Mudra. If you find ground targeting annoying, there is a macro that some people like to use instead. Just note that the macro will always put you at the center of whatever you are targeting, so it can sometimes position you weirdly, or convince you that you are not in range because it tries to overcompensate for how far it's trying to target. Forked Raiju is the preferred gap closer in most circumstances, but Shikuchi is especially helpful for getting away from the boss quickly. Shade Shift is your personal shield that can occasionally save your life in high damage situations, especially when paired with default melee DPS sustain buttons. Very useful to take some pressure off of your healers for tight heal checks. Yes, I'm looking at you, Living Liquid. Also, Ninja Limit Break 3 has a cool animation where you look like Kakashi Sensei riffing a bunch of mudras. Finally, it's time for my generic conclusion. Despite what you might think, I like Ninja. The job really grew on me and towards the end. I found myself thinking it's surprisingly comfortable thanks to chill filler while still providing me with happy chemicals. Ninja has been known for being extra clunky in the past, but it doesn't really feel like that to me ever since Mudra's returned into GCDs. It just fucking sucks if you ever start lagging though. Holy living fuck. High ping ninja is miserable. It's also impossible to not lose damage if you can't double weave thanks to tight weaving and burst. Just don't download a cheaty plugin to help you with that if you play on high latency, because I would never encourage you to break TOS. Even with all of that, this job is good for building up some fundamentals such as understanding burst windows, using abilities on cooldown, and also good for teaching you how to deal with melee downtime effectively. Just remember that Mug is a very strong cooldown in anything with more than 8 people, except for the fact that you can't stack Mugs. So good luck if you ever have multiple ninjas in an instance. Now let's get out there and fuck up another Raiju cast because your muscle memory hasn't been corrected yet. Why are you still here? The video's over. Well, here's some other videos to watch if you're really into that sort of thing.